Found my wife cheating on me last night. I met my wife in 2011. I was DJing a social event at school and playing some 90s rocks. I was playing Third Eye Blind and my wife liked the song that came on. She talked to me, we bonded over our mutual love of the band, yada yada, we started dating. Fast forward to 2013, we got engaged and we took a trip and to celebrate. We have this memory we talk about a lot of listening to the whole Third Eye Blind catalog and singing along to all the songs together. We got married that year. Fast forward through our whole marriage, we had this thing where we would try to see the band as much as we could. We saw them whenever they were on tour, a total of 9 times during our 9 years of marriage. Last night we were supposed to see them for the 10th time. If you're the math in your head, we've been married for 10 years as well. That's coming up in November, so I had this whole thing planned where we would go see the show, stay over at a hotel, have a romantic night. I get home from work on Friday, my wife is getting ready. She looks amazing. I see a text come on her phone. You know how the rest of the story goes, I don't even want to type it. She met some guy the night before when I was away for work. The part that killed me the most was she wrote that he needed to get condoms, and he's LOL. So I'm left wondering, did they even use any? What does it matter anymore anyway? After reading that, I just left the house and started for the concert. She calls me about 15 minutes later like, where are you? Oh, you know, just on the way to the show. What? Why? You know why. Think long and hard as to why I might be acting this way. I just hang up. Anyway, I think I was in shock still, I was pretty cool about it. But there's some backstory there I don't want to get into as to why I was prepared. She's cheated twice before in the past. I didn't really have any emotions at the time. Actually, when I started typing, this was the first time I felt anything. So she calls back and starts going through the motions. Oh, we're just friends. Oh, we didn't actually do it. Oh, I was drunk. Oh, it was just in a little bit. Then it was all come back and let's talk about this like adults, as if I'm the childish one for having stormed out. I'm thinking no. If that happens, I'm not seeing this show. We're just going to talk about how she cheated and she's going to try and seduce me. And that thought grossed me out. I never thought about sex with my wife and felt gross, but then I did. So I got to the concert and the guy scanned my ticket. He looks at me and says there's 2, indicating that he wanted to scan the other one. I just stared at him blankly and said yes. There's 2, and went inside. I was so weird, I felt like I was hypnotized. And then there was the show. Amazing show. I had a good time. I met some nice people in my row and we had a fun time enjoying the concert together. Some lyric hit a little differently. I've never been so alone. And I've never felt more alive. I felt pretty alive at the concert. I danced with the crowd and screamed my frustrations into the loudspeakers. No one could hear me over the loud rock music. It was over pretty early. I wanted to sit at the bar and drink, but that would have required talking to someone, and I just couldn't outside of the context of the concert. I was thinking about the texts again. So I went to the hotel I had booked for my wife and I, and went to sleep alone. I woke up to about 30 emails. She was up all night feeling all kinds of emotions, I guess. Guilt. Shame. Anger. Anger at me. Those were the most surreal, the ones where she was mad at me for going through her phone. A lot of bargaining and pleading. The worst was she had sent me cards I had written for her years before. Anniversary cards. Birthday cards. Christmas cards. I always handwrote a letter for her, professing my love for her. I never used to write anyone cards like these, but I did for her. She used to write cards like these for me. She hasn't in a number of years. I think her intent was that upon reading the cards, my heart would soften and I would realize how much I loved her. I would come to my senses and come to her, and we would talk it through, and I would forgive her, and it would all be better. But instead it just made me realize how much she doesn't love me. Story 2. Girlfriend caught cheating at her friend's wedding. So I, 31, met my girlfriend, Karen, 29, 5 years ago after she left her abusive boyfriend and moved back in with her parents and her small child. She dropped out of college when he got her pregnant her senior year, and he cheated and was physically abusive until she finally left him. We got introduced by one of her sorority sisters, Angie, who married a friend of mine, Dave. We connected and dated for a few months, and she and her son, Bobby, ended up moving in with me. The first few years were great. I got her to go back and finish her degree, and my dad got her a job where he works. About a year and a half ago, Karen reunited with some of her sorority sisters and they started having a girls' night out every other Saturday, and she was also having drinks after work with some of her coworkers occasionally, and when I said something about it she got defensive and we started arguing about it. Angie told her husband Dave that Karen was flirting a lot when they were out to the point it started to bother her, and Dave gave me a heads up about it. So on one of their girls' night I showed up at the bar and saw her flirting and letting a guy put his hands on her. I walked up and asked the guy to take his hand off my girlfriend and told Karen it was time to leave. It was an ugly drive home and we fought and she ended up sleeping on the couch. The next morning she apologized and said had a little too much to drink and got carried away. I said that wasn't good enough, and if we were going to stay together we were going to have to go to counseling together and work through this. Obviously the girls' night out was over for a while and we made progress and things got better. 2 months ago, I could tell she was starting to act sketchy, being over paranoid with her phone and leaving the room when she would use it. I tried to talk with her but she was just evasive and denied anything was wrong. I talked with Angie and Dave about my suspicions and Angie finally said that Karen had been talking with an old boyfriend from college and they had been flirting. When Angie called her out on it, Karen stated if she could keep both of them happy, and I didn't find out then what was the harm. She said I was a great provider and great with Bobby and she didn't want to lose that but she needed more. Needless to say that was devastating, but according to Angie the old boyfriend lived in Houston so there was no way they had anything physical, just long-distance flirting. One of Karen's sorority sisters asked her to be a bridesmaid at her wedding and we made plans to go, but Bobby developed an air condition and was supposed to have tubes installed and so he could fly there with us, and I volunteered to stay with him while she went. It was a 3-day event with rehearsal dinner, bachelorette party, shower, and the event day itself. After the rehearsal dinner Dave called and said Karen's old boyfriend had showed up and the two we hanging out and being very indiscreet. He sent me a couple of photos including a short video of them making out at the hotel. I called Karen's father and asked if he could watch Bobby so I could drive down for the wedding, and I dropped Bobby off on the way out of town. It was a very long 6-hour drive and I finally got there late that evening. I got to her room and could hear laughing inside, and I knocked on the door. After the third knock Karen opened the door in her robe and I walked in to find a guy naked in her bed. I introduced myself and advised him he should leave quickly. I turned and saw that Karen was undressed under the robe and asked her to explain herself. She got mad and then made excuses and then accusations. I finally said enough. I told her we were through. I said I was leaving and if she decided to come back she could get her things and get out of my like. As I walked back into the hall, there were a dozen or so people there, including Angie. We had never closed the door to the room, and as loud as we got, I'm sure we put on a pretty good show. I drove back and got home about the time the sun came up and crashed hard. The next morning I started boxing up all her clothes, but when I came to her lingerie drawer with all the sexy stuff we had bought, I threw all that into a different box along with her party and clubwear and sent it off to Goodwill. A couple of days later, when her flight got back, she called me from the airport, but her number was still blocked, so she had to Uber home. When she walked in, there were over a dozen boxes sitting in the living room with all of her and Bobby's stuff ready to go. I told her Bobby was at her parents' house and she could call her dad and have him help haul the rest of her stuff to his house or wherever she planned on staying. She tried to talk her way out of it, but I wasn't listening to her stories. She tried to load her suitcases in the car, but her key fob wouldn't work. I told her both cars were in my name, and if she tried to take one of them, I would report it as stolen. Her dad finally showed up and I gave him the short story on why we were breaking up. He didn't say a lot, but we shook hands before he left. All that was a week ago. Dave and Angie have cut contact with Karen. Evidently our drama spilled over the next day at the ceremony and overshadowed the wedding. Karen reached out and we talked a couple of times, but I said there was no way back for us. Even so, she refuses to give up on us. Right now I just have this hollow feeling inside. I eat, go to work, and come home and try to sleep. I'm not mad anymore, just numb, maybe a little sad and confused on what to do next. Story 3. Caught my wife having an affair. For the past couple years I've had the feeling something was going on with my wife. We dated for 9 years and been married 6 and never had issues being around each other's phones and computers. For at least 2 years and maybe more she has become guarded about me having her phone, and her location has often been turned off. We use the phone location stuff for safety since she travels often for work. A few weeks ago she had me look at some pictures she took and I saw text notifications come in alluding to oral sex and that she didn't need to wear anything but heels next time they saw each other. I have told her I do not feel comfortable with this particular person, and she always says they are just friends and don't see each other often anyway. They don't exactly work together, but see each other because of their work every few weeks from what I can tell. I knew she would say something like he's just a flirt and probably drunk, so I didn't mention it. But at this point I have sensed something was going on for a while and just saw evidence my intuition may be correct, so I put an audio recording device in her car. I also looked at our phone records and have noticed that she spends more time on the phone with him than anyone else, so I was expecting to catch one of their conversations and get proof one way or the other. I didn't know at the time, but she was scheduled to be involved in a meeting that he was attending and they hooked up in her car once the event was over. I heard it all, them talking about previous encounters and how they sneak around. How she goes about making her location look like she's still at the meeting, how she knows I pay more attention when she is in his town, how he hides it from his wife, making plans for the next couple months to make sure they can see each other more. Then they went out to get more drinks together and how he felt uncomfortable because she had just got hair and someone might recognize them. And how they said I love you when they said goodbye. I know everyone says this about a person they spend over 15 years with and chose to spend the rest of their lives with, but I never imagined she was even capable of any of this. The worst part was not that she said I love you, it was the way she said it. I confronted her the next day and played the recording. She initially said it wasn't her until it got to the point she couldn't keep that going. She completely broke down and got sick. I asked to see her phone and she said fine. I asked if she was deleting messages and she said no. We have iPhones, so deleted messages can be recovered within 30 days. She deleted over 2,300 messages within the past 30 days. She's been trickle-truthing the whole time. She's been love bombing the last few days knowing she lost me, and I am making plans to move out and getting our financial situation sorted. I don't really have anything else. I feel a bit dirty about spying on her, but grateful I know I can still trust my instincts and won't be a victim to the gaslighting/Darvo tactics anymore. I feel oddly calm, never yelled or anything, almost felt relief that at least I know enough of the truth. Been gray rocking as much as I can. She is trying to make things work but realizes she can't. This just sucks.